Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Everyday Equity, Everyday Ways to Make a Change. My name is Pooja Kothari, the founder of Boundless Awareness. And with me today is a guest that I have been very excited to have on, Alana C. Brown. Hi, Alana. It's really great to have you here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Alana is an attorney, the founder and CEO of A Cultured Business, her consulting company, a former executive director, and also the founder of the Safe Sister Circle. There's so much that you do. I want to pass it over to you to kind of really flesh out all of the areas that you are working in.
Well, I worked in equity because I started my organization, basically the Safe Sister Circle, in 2018. It's because I saw inequitable treatment of mainstream organizations that provide services for domestic violence survivors,
Mhm.
not giving them good service because there was a disconnect between the mainly white woman and the majority black and some Latino women in DC. Even though black women had the most highest rate of domestic violence in DC, they didn't have any services that were catering towards them or their culture specific. So I decided to leave the organization I was at and to start my own organization where there'd be black women leadership. Black women founded and women of color attorneys and black women attorneys representing clients and make and get better representation that understand where people are coming from, that meet people where they are. We were all trauma informed, trained, so it was just great. And that was my first kind of taste of equity. And why I did that was, and we also had a therapist come in once a month because we did work with people who dealt with domestic violence, sexual assault all the time. So there's a lot of vicarious trauma. So I had someone come in and have like a session with them once. I didn't go because I didn't want to make people uncomfortable. To have a session once a month to help people with their mental health in case they weren't doing it on the side for themselves.
You mean the people that worked at,
People that work there,
yeah, yeah, like the vicarious trauma that they are seeing from the
right?
people that they serve, of
Yeah.
course.
So the staff would get therapy and once a week, like a group therapy type situation once a month.
Mm. Um, I know there's so much more to like your resume, but I just want to like punctuate there. So you're seeing the inequity between how survivors are being treated in the system.
Yes.
Can you for people who may not have like any criminal um, justice experience, can you tell us what that looks like? Like a lot of people might say, why would a system treat
Well, I'm
uh,
talking about
people
the
differently?
civil system as well, the social services system.
Yeah.
But I started my career as a prosecutor and I'm a district attorney in New York, and I just saw how different cases were treated. And the majority of our cases, where there was domestic violence, sexual assault, happened in very black and Latina neighborhoods. Most survivors were black and Latina, and I felt like they were not even given due respect. It was just like, oh well, they're up there getting hurt, whatever. It was usually they're like in Harlem or Spanish Harlem, or up in that direction of Manhattan where I worked.
Mhm.
And I felt there was a lot of racism, like judgment. They didn't believe victims. They asked all these questions. They don't understand people don't think linearly. People don't have trauma ties. They just didn't give any credit to that. And so I felt like people were not going to do justice through the criminal system. And
Mhm.
also, not everyone wanted their partner or boyfriend to go to the criminal justice system because they were black men. You know how black men, Latino men get treated by the system, and they just wanted like safety. Mostly, I saw these wanted safety and get away from the person and like services. That's why I started my organization. I also would say that it was a lot of discrimination against women of color, particularly black women, within the office, and that's where I kind of got the idea of equity. And like when I went to my nonprofit, I wanted to hire a woman of color, black woman of color. It's really hard for us to get into the domestic violence legal world. It's very heavily white woman dominated, and prosecutor is very high. I mean, obviously, high white men dominated it.
Yeah.
And I saw inequity being treated, people being treated inequity within the office. People who are very good black attorney lawyers would not get chances that other people would, and that's why I left when my commitment was over. Um, and I also did work to death, and I didn't want to work my staff to death. I
Yeah.
wanted them. I didn't want them to have the same experience when I graduated law school as I had when I graduated law school, which was kind of a nightmare.
Mhm. What do you mean by that?
Oh, just like they work you to death. I got walking pneumonia. I didn't, you don't
Ugh.
think you have prosecution discretion. You don't really. We just get tired of like seeing the same people being locked up. The people don't understand the culture that the people they're prosecuting. So it's just a lot of misunderstandings. And then I was kind of judged for being, I guess, soft on people. Um, and not in a good way, judged in a good way. And so I just felt it wasn't a good fit for me, I would say. I'm not saying that prosecutors can't do good work. They can, they absolutely can. But I'm just saying it wasn't a good fit for me and my beliefs and what I held high in my what I felt comfortable with, I guess.
Totally, totally. Yeah, and it sounds like, and from our conversations before, I feel like I can say this confidently, like as a person who is a values-based person, if
Mhm.
the values were not aligned.
No, they were not.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because I know when we talked earlier, uh, we talked about how I came from a public defender background and you came from a prosecutorial background, and we both ended up in the same with the same understanding, and we both came into our jobs with the same values and came out of our jobs with the same like um, the things that are really important to us, like
Hmm.
we're not seeing the equity. uh, the office that we work for is telling us, both our own respected offices are both telling us that we are working towards justice, and yet we see such heavy inequity in our roles, and both of us in our own respected jobs just could not take it anymore. Um, so I find that really interesting and very rare actually to hear, to find that commonality with our jobs. But I feel like we really connected on that. Um, okay, so when you started the Safe Sister Circle, how did you know it? Like, it's one thing to say like the equity is misplaced, it's not happening, the discrimination is real, and people are not getting the services. But then to like start the Safe Sister Circle and to know like the groundwork to lay is a horse of a different color.
Right.
So can you tell us about how you even embarked on that?
So what I started is I would see things I disagree with in these other organizations, civil organizations, and I was saying, let me do the opposite of that. So I wanted to be culture specific, and it started out with just me taking on cases in domestic violence court and family court, just as the only lawyer and working another job full time. And eventually we got managing attorney and staff attorneys, but basically just wanting
Wow.
to know that the services they weren't getting, understanding as a Black woman what it's like to be ignored, and have people voices heard. And our clients always told us like, you always listen to us. Like I never felt my voice is heard before I came to your organization. I always felt like I was being ignored. And then just having legal skills of being a lawyer, practicing a lawyer, and being able to go into court with people, I think is and how to run a legal organization. Then we started a health justice clinic because our clients had a lot of really traumatized, had PTSD, a lot of issues, and so I was there like we want a mental health clinic with Black therapists, like we have Black lawyers, and it didn't exist in the DC area.
Mm.
They were free, I will say. And so we started a mental health clinic to give people those free services. Mental health services, our legal services were free as well. And so I just want to make sure people are approached as people and met where they are, approach as human individuals when you can take a survivor of domestic violence or sexual assault. And I also feel like people within the organization should be treated the same way, should be respected. Their opinions should be respected. And their ideas should be you take into their ideas. No matter how my door was always open, no matter how you're a staff attorney or an intern, my door was always open. And I like to get people's buy-in because I think it makes people want to stay at the organization longer. But you don't know everything. Even as a second director, I didn't know everything. I didn't necessarily know what's going on the ground after I stopped practicing. I
Mhm.
didn't know different people's perspectives a little bit. Some people were younger than me, so they knew young stuff, and I did not.
Right.
So that is like I'll give an example. Like when we did a, um, a brief, amicus brief for a case of going domestic violence and guns, I went to my whole staff and asked them to read the case. It went to the Supreme Court, asked them to read the case, read the facts, read the lower court's case, and everyone would give their opinion. Like, should we sign on to this brief? Do we want to sign on to this brief? Do we want to support the survivor? Do we think it's a good case? And everyone did say eventually say yes, but a lot of people came to me and said, "I appreciate you getting my opinion about it," because it wasn't me signing; it was the organization signing on to it, and I
Of
wanted to
course.
represent the organization.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's phenomenal. I work with so many leaders in nonprofit and private and academic spaces, and for some leaders it would be unfathomable to do what you did. Like, wait a second, I'm the director of this unit or this organization or company. Why would I get the buy-in of, like, it's my role to make these decisions. And here you are really kind of like flipping that on its head. Instead of saying, well, I am the executive director of this organization and I'm the representative of it, so I will make this decision to join this brief. But instead, you really wanted to know everybody's opinion, and like you said, get their buy-in. But why? Why was that important to you? When to so many other leaders, they would not do that.
I mean, I would say in the end, I would probably make the final decision, but it's important to me. Like I said, people have different perspectives, people have different experiences. We have some survivors who were staff, some survivors who were interns and on our board. So we just really had a perspective from the other side. I think for me, I didn't start the organization thinking like, oh, I'm just doing it for me. I'm doing it for the community that I worked in, which was the board 7 and 8 in DC, was majority Black community. And I was doing it for other Black and women of color attorneys who couldn't get jobs other places, but were brilliant and wanted to do this work and were passionate. And if I'm going to be equitable on outside the organization and try to help the Black community, I feel like you have to be equitable within your own organization and listen to, and spread the power around, do some power sharing with people. And I also want to be like a mentor and mentee. I really wanted to build up our staff and build up my deputy director, who's now the executive director, and build up staff attorneys and managing attorneys and the psychologists. I really did mentorship and building people up and making them the best that they can be in whatever space they're in. And you have to be like power share and be equitable when you're doing that, because you don't have to be like, you're not hogging all the attention for yourself. Because I found that a lot of organizations, executive director, or even like at law firms, people don't want to like share with other people of color. They feel like there's competition. I try to get rid of that competition feeling within my organization.
Yeah, there is a real like it's funny because it's based in sexism, it's based in misogyny, that women keep other women down.
Yeah.
And it's there's this myth that surrounds, because of how misogynist our society is, that there's only room for one woman, or there's only room for one Black woman at the top, and if any other Black women are around or any other women of color are around, that they are like seem to be a threat. And this myth that there is scarcity for people of color, but abundance for like white men leaders, is a misogynist, sexist idea. And yet so many women ascribe to that philosophy and see other women as threats. So I'd love to hear your point of view on how, why you don't believe in this myth of scarcity or scarce opportunities for women of color.
I learned it because I was told by a mentor, to be honest, that don't buy into scarcity. There's enough money for all of us. In terms of applying for grants, applying for funding, sponsors, don't feel like you have to fight the other executive directors to get the money. And though it feels that way sometimes, you feel like it's all the domestic violence people are fighting for the same grant. And don't do anything desperate. Like, don't do things out of desperation or scarcity, because you're going to make impulsive decisions. You're not going to think about your team. You're not going to think about how it affects the community. So I just learned early on by this mentor, like this, don't react in this way.
Wow. And you took it to heart. That's amazing.
She's a great mentor.
Yeah. I know you mentioned this mentor. And so can you talk a little bit more about who she is and how she impacted you?
Her name is Indira Hanard. She's the executive director of the DC Rape Crisis Center. She's amazing, like a superwoman. She always says that her work is hard work, not hard work. Hard work. And she basically took me in. I was struggling as a young Black woman executive director. And she reached out to me to find how powerful she was and high up she was, and said, "Do you need some help? Let's meet for coffee." And we met for coffee. And she kind of just like brought me in slowly as her mentee. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, to be honest, in terms of my organization, because she was just such a leader in so many different things. And when I had problems with my organization or the board, she was always there with a good answer, or help me think through an answer. So I really respect that. She looks out for younger Black women attorneys, Black women executive directors in the DC area.
Yeah, that's remarkable. It's so lucky to have people like that in your life. And now you are, the founder of A Cultured Business, coaching and consulting and centering women of color executive directors and nonprofit leadership. tell us what brought you to A Cultured Business, which the website is aculturedbusiness.com, and you can get a free consult with Alana. But tell us what made you start it? How did you get into this? And yeah, let's go. Let's start there first. I have like 100
I got
questions.
into it because I felt like as a executive director, Black woman, there was a report that actually came out, several reports that came out about how Black women executive directors were leaving the nonprofit field because of the disparity in funding, disparity of treatment, not respected by their boards. And that's what I experienced as well.
Right.
And when I left my organization, I just needed a break. My mother had passed away. It was just a lot going on. And so I decided, like, I didn't experience this myself. I want to help other young, I want to be like Indira, help other young Black executive directors and women of color kind of thrive in the nonprofit world. And I've been there myself. It's authentic. It's something it's a lived experience. But also, I had really good skills. Like, I taught myself everything, like grant writing, development, because I was only one or two or four people at one time. So you had to know how to fundraise. You had to know how to development. You had to know how to grant write and deal with individual donors. And I started up the nonprofit myself. I mean, I was a lawyer, so it wasn't that hard for me to start a 501c3. But it is a service I often give to clients. A lot of people just like, I didn't want to start a nonprofit. I don't know where to start. And they're doing the work, but they're not getting paid for the work, especially women of color on the ground doing the work for free. And they could be getting funded and doing the work for money because our money we should be valued for our time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, you know, when you are, coaching other executive directors, and you see the big picture of, the the hourly, daily oppression and comments, and I talk about in my workshops that the most, oppression or privilege comes in 5 different ways. Regular safety, the opposite of that is expected violence, opportunity or lack of opportunity, access to opportunity or no access to opportunity, being seen as the authority. And the last one is the most insidious one, which is getting the benefit of the doubt. And if privilege is getting the benefit of the doubt. Privilege is being trusted, and the oppression, the most insidious, like hard to describe, explain, convince people of, is when you don't get the benefit of the doubt.
Oh, I can give an example of that because there was a funding issue with organization, and we were not given. And I know another organization had a white run woman organization had some of the same issues. They were given the benefit of the doubt and were funded. Our funding was taken away, and we were granted no grace whatsoever. And I was just like, my lesson from there was that don't ever expect you're going to, as a Black woman founder, as a Black woman director, you're never going to get the benefit of the doubt. So work as if you're not going to, don't expect to get the benefit of the doubt or that someone's going to give you grace because they won't.
Yeah.
And you have to just operate. Maybe they will once sometimes, but
Yeah.
operate if they won't, because that's going to hurt you if you believe that you're going to get a second chance. Because often we don't get second chances.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, totally. And it's so hard. If people don't understand this invisible issue, invisible to them, um, they may not believe it. They may say it's a fluke. You chalk it up to all sorts of individual circumstances instead of seeing it as a systemic barrier to entry that is regular, consistent, expected, and but not quantifiable. You can't say like, oh, they trust me X%, but they trust this white woman 90%. You can't quantify it. So a lot of people don't believe it, but it's obvious, it's systemic, it's all over the place. And so when you are coaching, your clients, executive directors of color, how do they even approach you, and what are some of the themes that you work on with them?
So when they approach me, they either can email me. I've known people through friends who so when I posted, I did some free grant writing webinars. People came from that. I just had like a friend who's knew me and has young executive director as a friend, and just referred her to me. And you can just reach out and do free consulting on my website, or email me, or hit me up on LinkedIn. Either one is fine, and then we'll just have a 30-minute consulting to see what your issues are. So I want them to feel like they're in a safe space. They could talk. They could be authentic, because I think authenticity is very important in a leadership role. And first we talk about like how to do management, how to deal with staff, how to deal with policies and procedures, how to develop a program, especially if it's a program that's culture specific. What does that mean for your organization? I know what it meant for my organization. It meant for Black women living in the DC area, particularly Ward 7A. What does that mean for someone who's maybe indigenous who lives in Mexico? New Mexico. There's going to be a very different experience. And then how do you build up a program that's successful? How do you quantify that success or qualify the impact of what you're doing? But then I also do teach them grant writing skills, because I believe teaching people is better than doing it for them, so they can do it themselves and save money in the long run.
Yeah.
But I do some straight just grant writing for people who just want grants done and grants reviewed. I can just do that as well. And how to do development, what are the ways to get individual donors, what are the ways to put yourself out there in the media, put your outside there in the community, and how to do outreach, and also how to make the community trust you, which is very important, because a lot of communities that need services or underprivileged, they don't trust people from the outside.
Right. Why would
I'm
you?
from the DC area, and actually was born in Ward 7, lived there for quite a while, but was raised in a suburb of DC, a Black suburb of DC, Prince George's County. People didn't trust me. They're like, who is this woman trying to help us give us services for Black? Who is she? Who does she think she is? Why is she coming in there? So we would do dinners and coat drives, backpack bag drives, because All-Star survivors were mothers, and mothers always care about their kids and always would come out for their kids. And just got people to start knowing our name and build up that trust. So now we can provide services, they'll trust us to get services, and they'll spread the word to their friends.
Yeah.
And they can be trusted. We can talk to them. We can be heard. We can get specific services and get holistic services. Because the need for Black women survivors is so great. Besides, we help with food insecurity, getting kids in different schools, different things like that. That weren't just legal based. We say law would get them in, but then we try to provide everything else. But to have anyone just come in, they have to believe and trust you in the first place.
I mean, time is very valuable, especially for the people you're serving. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no time in people's lives. If you're taking care of kids, you're dealing with your own trauma, you have to work, you have to get your kids to school. And, if someone's like, I can help you, you want to know that person's worth it, and you're not, wasting, your precious half hour or hour with them.
That's what I try to include in my coaching. And also just how to do community outreach. Very different things you could do to reach out to the community that's involved in your type of work that you're doing. That's related to we do legal workshops. If you're not doing law, there's other type of workshops you can do. You can go into the community and do self-care for mothers. If you're into reproductive justice for mothers, the Black mortality rate is out there, and how can we fight against that as a nonprofit? But how can we also reach out to let people know we're fighting for that with community services? So that's also important. I mean, everyone's very specific. I take everyone for everything in life. I take everyone at an individual level, and as an individual, as a person. So it really depends. It's very catered to what you need as a leader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another aspect of what you offer is also talking about bringing equity into the internal staff of the organization. So, so far we've been kind of talking about looking externally outside the organizations that you serve, and the clients that come to you. And then also you make them look internally of the equity and social justice that you're interested in providing to the community, make sure you're providing it to your staff. So Can you talk a little bit about this? I find, even in my own practice at Boundless Awareness, is very hard for many leaders to grasp of we're a mission-based organization, but then internally the staff are this is a really hard place to work at. There's these demands, and I don't like these policies, and the staff inside are upset, but the external, the shine is very compelling of what the organization does.
Yeah, because working for a nonprofit is exhausting.
Yeah.
And you don't get paid. I mean, obviously I was a lawyer. I was not getting paid comparable to my other lawyer friends who went to firms or other stuff. So just in general, you're getting paid less than market rate, and you're giving up all your time for your mission, and it's hard. So I want to respect people's time and energy, and know they're giving up time, and know that some people might be taking a sacrifice to work for that organization or any organization, and how can and respect that. And working at these other nonprofits, when I saw people hate it, some people hated the leadership, just hated working there, just felt undervalued. So I want to value people and get people's opinions. I even we did a survey, what type of health insurance do you want? How do you want your vacation to be? Do you want it to be rollover? Do you want it to be every year? We did a survey about benefits for our staff. just to get the idea like what people were really looking for when we started providing them. And so I think it's just, and I also took a racial equity class recently, in like the last 6 months, and it was really enlightening. And I think that's really helps me help other leaders do that as well. How do you put it into like organizations, your own organizations that you're helping out?
Yeah. 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 Because there's really no paradigm for like, here's how you run like an equitable nonprofit organization, and here, follow this manual. There's no other model for it.
Right. I mentioned a book that I wanted to mention because it was really helpful for me. I'm trying to see what it's called. I can't. It is called
The Equity Mindset.
The Equity Mindset by, I can't pronounce the first name, but her last name is Ike, Ike.
Uh-huh.
The Equity Mindset, I think, is a really good book for people, especially like allies, if people want to work with, who don't understand what it's like to be a woman of color in the world, in the workplace. But it also was helpful for me just to see like, what was I doing right with my organization? What was I doing wrong? What could I have changed if I was there? What could I have changed in how I presented myself to funders? What could I have changed in terms of like not lose a grant? Like how could I have approach things a little bit differently? So I thought it was a really helpful book to read. So I just wanted to shout it out because I feel like it's worth shouting out.
Yeah, let me post it up here. It's called The Equity Mindset, and obviously change the way that you're looking at things, and helping other clients kind of see the necessity of thinking in this way. So love that book recommendation. We're gonna also like tag that in after we're done here. Um, Okay, one thing you just mentioned, actually, that I want to circle back to is you went to a racial equity training. So, and I know for you and also for me, our own education um, is like
Never ending.
never ending and so important that we, and I mean, this, you and I both believe in the same thing, that we are continuously learning, and that we are continuously a student in equity work. And
Yeah.
so talk to us about how you find your education, how do you find your trainings, and like for other leaders to go out and do similarly, like to continuously educate themselves, like how do you find it?
Well, I was still am in a consulting group for Black women of color consultants for nonprofits, that specific of a group. And I wanted to really get involved in DEI equity work. And so I asked them, like, does anyone know any programs? There were programs like at GW and Georgetown that were like super pricey. But someone said, I did this program called Racial Justice. And I can't remember, I know it's Racial Justice Institute or something. It was only like about $300. It was like for 6 months. And it was just a really great program. And that's how I found out about it. Someone just posted like, well, if you're interested, I did this program, check it out, see if you like the professor, let's see if you like the classes. And so I just did that. And then just in general, once you get into that community, people can always tell you about different trainings about how to be a good facilitator, equitable facilitator, how to be a good advocate for your clients, how to be a good advocate to tell people how to be good advocates for their clients, advocacy stuff. So I'm always like looking for different trainings or meeting people to get advice from. I like learning. I'm kind of a nerd. I mean, I'm a lawyer, so that's kind of obvious. Yeah. But so I like learning and keep learning new things.
Absolutely, yeah. Like you mentioned, trauma-informed communication, nonviolent communication, racial equity in general, and reading books like The Equity Mindset. All are, topics that, if you're interested in equity and social justice, are all topics that you should be educated in some way. Mm-hmm. So where can people find you? How do people get a consult with you? What's the process
So you can find me at aculturebusiness.com with aculturebusiness.com. And my email is just that, Alana, ALANA, at aculturebusiness.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can direct message me. I'll respond to all my direct messages, unless it's crazy stuff. People trying to sell me things. Or you can go to my website. There's like a form you can fill out to get a consultation. But I think it's just easier to email me directly. But if you don't catch the email, you can just go to the website. There's a consultation form you can fill out, and then I'll contact you.
Okay, great. And it's a free 30-minute consult. You get to see what's going on
Mhm.
and advise a person how you can help them and where to go.
Right. And if it's a good fit, because you want to make sure. Like I had an executive coach when I was a executive director. It was a great fit. She was a Black woman who was an executive director of a woman of color domestic violence organization, national one. And so it was just like really good. She really much knew what I was going through. So I want to make sure I'm a good fit for that person as well.
Excellent. Excellent. Alana, it's been a joy to speak with you. If you're an executive director of color, contact Alana. See, she is, with a wealth of years of experience and on the ground experience. She can really just get you to the next level. Alana, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. This is a great conversation. I appreciate
Yes.
it.
Everybody, we have a special Everyday Equity that is actually tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern. So make sure to check that out, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.